Hi, I'm excited to be here with Gilberto, and Gilberto is the founder of Delphire. And Delphire is a monitoring system that helps detect and for prevention of wildfires, which I think is an incredible idea and something that's going to make a strong social impact and environmental impact. In the future. So, Gilberto, thank you for taking the time to join us here today. And I know you're going to be able to explain it much better than me, and that's the purpose of doing this. But quick, I know you're one of those PhDs, and tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to the point of deciding you wanted to delve into how we can help prevent and monitor wildfires.
Sure. You might be surprised to know that my PhD is actually in biology, which may be unexpected. I spent a lot of my time in grad school at Caltech learning how to robotize biology experiments as well as in some machine learning. After that, I worked through a grant under my own company to do machine learning and trying to come up with a blood test for Parkinson's. The idea was to analyze clinical data and try to organize it by common groupings between the patients. And then this project came up and was an opportunity to do something that was impactful and good for here in California. Every time there's a wildfire, it makes it really difficult to breathe, and it gave an opportunity to work in this space. This originally started out as something meant to work with firefighters, although there was no real market there that could be pursued. And the idea of the power lines came up as an interesting potential market. And the more I looked into it, the more I realized this was an opportunity that was worth building out from. I wrote up a grant to the DOE, and that grant was funded, somewhat validating that the technology that we're working on is interesting and shows promise. So
That's
that's
That's great. Yeah. And I think when we met and talked a month or two ago, I found it very fascinating what you're doing because, again, it's something that I've never seen anybody else doing. And that's always exciting for me, considering the amount of startups and pitch decks and everything that I've seen. It's always nice to see something fresh, something different. And again, something that makes that social impact and environmental impact, for having lived in Arizona 20 years prior to living here, wildfires are a major issue there. I grew up
yeah.
in Northwest Montana. Wildfires are a major issue up in the Northwest. I mean, so it's not just here in California. I mean, what you're doing can make a strong impact, nationwide and globally. So that's exciting. So let's, if you can, give me just a brief, what we would call an elevator pitch, maybe a minute or two, just kind of going through, here's the problem, here's the solution, here's the market, here's, what we're doing, here's the team, and then we're going to dive into that a little more.
Okay, absolutely. So the problem is grid-related wildfires in California. This is a growing problem, and there's a lot of new legislation coming out in this space, which is creating a serious issue for the utilities, our customer. The utilities themselves are under a lot of both societal and legal pressure to address the wildfire problem. And our goal is to provide them with a system which first will detect the fires early, kind of like a Ring doorbell will detect a person at your door. We're able to position our devices along the grid, and the small computer inside will analyze data from the visual and thermal cameras, and it will tell you when there's a fire along the line. The same system can also record what is going on. Was there some pre-existing issue? And our goal is to take all of that data, record it, analyze it, and then use it for future preventions once you've learned what may have been the underlying cause of that event.
Fantastic. I mean, again, just such a phenomenal idea and something that can be so impactful. So let's talk a little bit about then what the market is. So your target, I believe, is the utility companies as far as who you go to and who the device would be, sold to.
That's our beachhead market for sure. The utilities are a good entry point, but they basically would purchase our hardware, and then we would um, add on data packages much like you would for a cell phone. And then the software would come as a service for updating the capabilities of the device. So we would sell them basically any software update where we're implementing new features, new prevention. That would be a great value add to the system, and that would build as a software as a service. Under another model, which we're currently exploring, we may be able to work with the insurance companies. So we found out in our market research that the power companies are currently taking out large insurance plans for wildfire mitigation specifically because they're literally being almost put out of business, as we've seen from PG&E. So the idea would be to also approach these insurance companies and see if we can get them to adopt our system, much like car insurance companies have adopted the airbag or the car alarm to prevent some of the damages being passed on to them. They would have a vested interest in adopting our system for looking at what was the underlying cause of the fire and mitigating the effects of the fire, both of which may be interesting to them as another customer. We also want to target small and rural communities. I lived in Big Bear for a while, and I've lived in Lake Arrowhead for a couple of months. And you can see the effects of wildfires in those communities very quickly. And having an early warning system when you have a fire coming up can be very important. It can be the difference between life and death sometimes. So for me, that's sort of another important market that we may tackle through some state grants as well as state funding.
Okay, what is the size of I'm sure you've done a little bit of, market research. What's the size of the market?
The size of the market is about 3.2 billion between the utility and the community protection market, as you might call it. And out of that, we're looking to capture about 320 to 340 million by deploying across a few utilities and covering their transmission and distribution grids.
And because you have both a hardware play and a SaaS play, software play in addition to that, what do you envision as far as first of all, what would be, I know when you go into full production, margins will change. What is your initial margin going to be, and what have you forecasted being able to get that to?
So our initial cost of goods sold is about 60%. So it'd be a 40% profit margin. And then we anticipate that to basically flip around to a 60% profit margin on the hardware at scale. So we're looking at, and these are very conservative numbers. It's around $2,000 out of a $3,500 unit for our sensor unit, and then dropping down to about somewhere between $1,200 and $1,500 out of a $3,500 unit. We think we can actually price them a little bit higher than that, so the margins would change significantly based on some recent data that we've collected on weather station deployments as well as webcam deployments. So if we're able to increase that price, those numbers are going to change significantly. And on the software as a service, we are currently pricing it similar to other AI implementations, although under some models we could price in a completely different way, which is much more aggressive, looking at the actual value that we're bringing. Because each time you prevent a fire, you're potentially saving a 10 or $100 million event for that company. Sure. Each time you detect a fire early, you can reduce damages anywhere between 1 million to 100 million. So we're restructuring that value proposition right now with some of our advisors.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly from initially when we met and had a conversation, these systems would be put about every mile or so on the grid. Is that how that works, or?
That's correct. We'd be putting our devices about every mile on the grid, and we are at a almost demonstration ready. I can actually, peek at one of our devices, which is meant to look along the grid.
Okay.
You can see our visible camera and our thermal camera, kind of like your Ring doorbell has, facing one direction, and then a pod in the other direction. This is our antenna for a transmission unit, wind sensor, temperature, humidity, all sorts of environmental data, and then our computers running in here, as well as the cellular modem is actually housed in here with the antenna up on top. So these would be our field demonstration units right here. There's still some hardening to do, but my guess is we should be pilot ready in the next 2 or 3 months with the current chip shortages.
Sure. And I'm going to make an assumption, and I'm glad you did that. I was going to just say that, I'm going to encourage the viewers to look at your deck so they can see a picture, although this looks a little more compact than what I even, what's shown in your deck, which is great. I'm assuming that these are being tested for the elements and weathering and, durability and that type of thing. They're all part of the testing process.
That's what we're gonna do next. So we're finishing off the enclosure to be moisture sealed, and that's what we've been working on between the last revision and this revision. So our goal is to bring that to that type of spec. We've used components inside which should be resistant to those temperatures and humidity. So we've done our homework on that side, and obviously until you test them out in the field for prolonged periods of time, which is our next step, that becomes so that's still to be done.
Sure. Okay. Now let's touch upon the traction that you have. I know you're pre-revenue because you're still doing pilot and that. But let's talk about. I mean, you received the DOE grant, and I believe there's the second phase of that that can be applied to the company as well. And maybe if you can talk a little bit about that DOE grant and the process you're going through with that currently.
Sure. So right now we are in a phase 1 SBIR grant. The purpose of these grants is to promote the development of new technologies and bringing these technologies to the market. A phase 1 is a $200,000 award for 1 year, whereas a phase 2 grant is $1 million over up to 2 years in effort. The purpose of this grant is to bring our device and its underlying functionality to our customers, and to basically bring this what was an idea a year ago to life. And the progress has been sort of stunning. That a year ago we had literally nothing, and today we've already made it, as you saw, as noted, a second version of the of a potential field demonstration unit, which is functional. So the goal of these grants is, again, to support this technology, and the odds of getting a phase 2 are about 40 to 45%. And we've been taking every step that we can to try to secure that phase 2, including opting into these optional programs that the DOE makes available to us. One of those is a market discovery program where we interviewed 30 different individuals in a period of 7 weeks. And that is about improving your product market fit, as well as, customer discovery. We learned a lot of important points during those interviews, and how to best tailor our technology for our customers. We're also working as part of that grant is a commercialization plan, and together with our advisors and our team, we're working on making a compelling case that there is a need for our product in the market, and that will help drive our phase 2 effort along with technology. So the phase 2 really is about not just making a compelling technology case, but also making a compelling market case that the technology exists, and that is done in a 15-page commercialization plan that covers topics like who is your customer, what is your traction, what is your strategy revolving around IP, and basically everything that you would need to bring this to the market. What is your go-to-market plan? How do you plan to manufacture the units? And it forces you to structure all of those things that make a plan to bring
Sure.
the device to market.
Sure.
And so I think those are both good features here for the phase 2 grant.
Absolutely. And where are you at with the IP aspect?
So we filed a provisional patent in 2020, and we've just filed the non-provisional version of that at the beginning of September.
Okay.
So that is currently in review by the USPTO, and we probably will not know an answer on that for realistically 2 or 3 years, as
Sure.
you all very well know.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned team. Talk just a little bit about your team, who you got on board. And I know, I'll mention that you were accepted into the Long Beach Accelerator and went through that program, which is fantastic, right? Local to where I am here.
Yeah.
And you have some other news moving forward with the next step there with Lacey.
Yes.
For those here in LA that know the LA Clean Incubator, Tech Incubator, which is fantastic. So first talk a little bit about your team and then get into maybe the opportunity now with Lacey.
Sure. So our team right now is composed of myself and Ochan, who's an expert in machine learning. I worked with him on the previous Parkinson's project, and he's come on board with me onto this one. He's mainly doing the software development, whereas I'm driving the hardware development and some of the business outreach. We also have an intern currently out of USC, Victor, and Victor is helping us out with our new website as well as some of the art. He helped us redesign our new logo. We got Randy Lyle, who's the retired SDG&E fire coordinator, and he's been giving us great advice on how to deploy these devices in the field. Jerry Schumann has got previous experience in IoT devices being deployed along the grid. David Horn is a professor emeritus in marketing from CSU Long Beach, and he's on a local fire safe council. Has been advising us on both marketing and fire safe, as well as Sue Malone, who's worked on the SBA's PPP, has been advising on general business experience. So I think that pretty much wraps up our team, along with a couple of other consultants and unofficial advisors that I can draw upon, including my father, who's got a lot of experience in multinational projects, and a huge network of supportive friends and family who are helping us out with this huge effort by providing their knowledge and their insights. One of our family friends worked on installing electronics at fire stations, as well as installing electronics on cell phone towers, and it's been great to be able to basically bug everybody as much as I can to get insights into what we're doing better.
Sure. And real quickly, Lacey, what's the opportunity now with Lacey?
So we are in their incubation program for the next 2 years. Lacey is a wonderful organization here in LA, as you mentioned. We're very proud to be able to be part of their third cohort in the incubation program. And they provide a huge staff of, I believe, over 50 people to support all aspects of the business. They connect you with investors. They connect you with potential customers. They have an in-house pilot program that allows you to ask for some support and actual funding from them, as well as the connections to the potential companies. And they share office space with the LA Department of Water and Power, which has also been a great resource, being able to access them directly and ask them questions has been very helpful over the last few weeks to try and foresee potential hurdles and tackle them before they become a problem for the business.
Okay, fantastic.
And sorry, I wanted to also, the Long Beach Accelerator has been also an incredible support for us at every level. They've connected us with potential clients, advisors, and generally have been incredibly supportive of our business, and through them connecting us to the Sunstone Fund that gave us our initial investment that also made this initial development possible.
Yes.
So it's humbling to see the support that we've gotten from a variety of organizations and people.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Just real quick, and then we'll wrap things up here. So what's the future vision as far as, where do you see this going 3 to 5 years, exit plan? What do you foresee as far as that goes?
So in the 3 to 5 year range, I think it's realistic to say that we will either be deployed on one utility network at pretty wide range, potentially 2 utilities. That would bring us into a substantial revenue range at that point. The reason why I'm bringing out those numbers is from previous deployments that they've made in their technology space, and I'm basing those numbers on those previous deployments. As far as exit plan, there are really 2 options for the company. One is to a private sale to a larger business in the space that services the utility, and I'm already investigating some of those partnerships to establish those relationships with those key players in the utility business. They may also work as an early partner for the company to lower some of those entry barriers of trust with the utilities. And on the other side, if we're extremely lucky and manage to expand past one business early on in the next 5 years, we could look at a potential market float, although that will require some substantial luck to be upfront.
Fantastic. One last question for you. How would you describe your ideal investor? Somebody that you would want to work with, that's interested in investing in your company. What would that investor look like?
I'd want to work with somebody who's passionate about climate action. Taking care of the wildfire program in California is a huge issue. It's not going away. It's actually likely to get worse. So I'd love to work with somebody who's passionate about that. Somebody who's passionate about data science. I think we have a huge data science problem in the wildfire space. We don't have enough of an understanding about the underlying cause of a lot of these fires. Could they be prevented? Somebody who gets behind that vision that may take longer to expand into the real profitable part of this business will be the data business that is behind it. Who can we sell that data to? So there's a hardware business at the front end in the next 3 to 5 years that may be very successful, but then all the data that we collect has a value which is much greater than that front end. That's where we could begin working with insurance company, begin working with other early responding companies. We talked to a couple companies that are making fire retardant. They're making some hardware to respond to fires. For them, or knowing where the fire is happening early on is key to deploy their product. So there will be a lot of avenues to sell this data. We'll have weather data that can be sold for modeling. We have, a very large data business behind us and data science business around the prevention aspect, which is where the real savings will come in for either a utility or a government customer to really scale our value past our initial point of where we are today.
And I did fail to ask, what are you looking to raise, and what would be the runway with that in use of the funds?
So currently we're looking to raise about $200,000. The use of the funds would be to help us leverage our phase 2 grant. The timeline at which we're looking to raise that is sometime between February and June of 2022. and the runway would be basically extended throughout the life of a phase 2 grant up to 2 years. The grants are a reimbursement grant, so we have to spend the money and then have it be reimbursed. So without the initial investment, it would make it difficult to effectively leverage that grant. Without the grant, we could still survive under that investment probably for 8 to 12 months, although we would not be able to hire an additional staff as we would under the grant, and we would be not as good of a position.
Sure. Okay. No, that's
That's the
fair.
realistic picture of what I can give you.
You're an early stage company, and I think what you're doing is fantastic. And you know, I greatly appreciate your time, and look
Likewise.
forward to seeing more. What's the best way to get in touch with you? And we'll also put that on the video and screen. But what's the best way to get in touch with you, Gilberto?
The best way to get in touch with me is my email, and that's desalvo@delphiretech.com. Or my cell phone is 626-399-7019. I'm somewhat old-fashioned. I always welcome a good old phone call, and also I'm willing to meet in person for coffee and talk about what we're working on in more depth. I love what we're doing, and I think it's a great opportunity. And I think, if it's going to be a working collaboration, which is what I would like with an investor at the end of the day, we should get to know each other, and call me and let's schedule a coffee date.
Great. Sounds good. Again, Gilberto, thank you for your time. Great learning more
you.
about Delphire and what you're doing.
Thank you so much.